Hey guys, what's going on? Sam Bosworth here. This is my first video back in a while, but I'm feeling motivated and I want to talk about disability today. So my goal of this video is to talk about why I take Tramadol, so I'll break down my disability and the things it specifically helps me with. I want to talk about the pros and cons, so I'll talk about all the things it helps me with in my daily life and the things I want to do and how it helps me do them. And I'll also talk about the cons and the side effects, of which there is quite a few for Tramadol and any opiate medication, obviously. I'm not going to be talking a lot about the opioid epidemic. I just want to say before I start that stopping everybody taking opioids will seriously harm chronic pain patients who, for some, opiate medication is the only thing that helps, and I, thus far, am also one of those people. Anyway, enough of the controversies, let's get into it. So, first of all, I want to talk about why I take it. If you've watched my channel before, you'll know I have a disability and chronic pain. I have Charcot-Marie tooth disease, which is nothing to do with teeth. It's a form of peripheral neuropathy. So, that affects my feet and my hands foremost. It means my feet, instead of being flat like this, are really on their sides. I have incredibly high arches, making it very painful for me to walk. I also have kyphosis of the spine, which has pretty much been attributed to my CMT. That is probably the most painful aspect of it, because while I can use a wheelchair and crutches, which I do when I go out, the back pain is immense when I'm sitting. Even now, as I'm talking to you, I'm on my medication. I'm wearing a heat pad, but it still is quite painful. So those are my two main things. I also have chronic fatigue. My Tramadol doesn't really help with that as such. It can help me sleep sometimes, in that it numbs the pain of my back, but obviously chronic fatigue, if you know what that is, it means you get incredibly tired very easily. You don't have a lot of energy. Doing 1 hour activity, even just going to the store or to the shops or whatever, is completely exhausting and wipes you out for a long time. So that's, if you want to learn more about CMT and my disability in general, I have numerous videos in a disability playlist, which will be up here or up here, I can't remember which side. So be sure to check that out if you want to find out more. So why do I take Tramadol? Well, for me, it is the best. For me specifically, again, this might not be for you, pain medication affects everybody differently, including people with the exact same disability. But for me, it's been the most effective, certainly at first anyway, of numbing my pain. I don't think any pain medication could completely, make me a 0 out of 10 of pain. I'm probably a 5 out of 10 on the Tramadol. But for me, it was the best at numbing my pain without as much nausea, but still some. That came with the other medications I've tried. I will talk about those further into the videos, so be sure to keep watching if you want to find out what else I've tried. So the main reason I take Tramadol is because it really helps with my lifestyle. I can't work a conventional job with my disability. As I've explained, I'm in a lot of pain all the time. I couldn't even do an office job because sitting for any period of time, even just making a 10-15 minute video like this, is very painful for me. The chronic fatigue means I can't plan ahead of time, so I couldn't commit to doing even 2 days in a row of work because of the chronic fatigue. I'd be exhausted even just from an hour of sitting doing something like this. Tomorrow I'll be wiped out because of making this video. So I can't work a conventional job. However, I am a disability advocate and activist and writer. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll know that. If you don't, be sure to check out my thing here, or it will be down in the description. I write about disability every day. That's something I can do in bed, in my pajamas, on my phone. It takes a short amount of time to write a tweet or, a blog post I can write over a few days because it's incredibly painful for me to type with my hands. So that's something I do. But outside of that, and prior to my disability getting to the level it is now, I was and still am a professional musician. If you've watched any of my other videos, you'll probably know that. I post disability stuff and I post music stuff on here, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, etc. So along with that comes the fact that I gig sometimes. Now, this is something I absolutely should not be doing. It is immensely painful for me to do, and it wipes me out, not just for a day, but for a full week. Even just playing a half-an-hour set is a nightmare on my back. I have to really load up on pain medication, which is why I'm making this video. That's why I take Tramadol, and it really wipes me out. So the Tramadol, for me, really helps me be able to gig, because Tramadol tends to kick in about 1 or 2 hours after you take it. For me, personally, again, your mileage may vary. For me, personally, it takes around 2 hours to kick in. And I always take it with food. So before a gig, which I usually play around 8 or 9 p.m., I will eat my main meal of the day around 6 p.m., which means I can take my medication And in doing that, it tends to kick in around about the time I'm due to get to the venue, which is usually just a pub or a club. I'm not a famous musician. I don't play in big spaces. I just play local pubs and clubs. And the people that book me are incredibly accommodating and know my entire situation. So taking that medication around 6 p.m. really helps me. For those that are curious, I now currently take 50 milligrams of Tramadol, which is one capsule for me, as you can see, which you probably can't because of the lighting. These are just tiny little tablets. I find them quite easy to take. I take 50 milligrams of Tramadol, one capsule, 3 times a day. So I don't really eat breakfast. I wake up in the afternoon because of my gigging schedule and because my girlfriend works night shift for the most part. She works in a bar, so I'm pretty much on her schedule. I don't gig that much, but I'm on nights pretty much. So I wake up around 2 p.m. I eat my lunch. I kind of call it, I have like some toast so I can take my medication. I'm not hungry, I have to force it down. So I force that down, take my medication, and then I usually eat a main meal around 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. If I'm not gigging, it can be later, depends on how I'm feeling, if I've napped, if I'm tired. And then I usually take it around midnight or 1 p.m. So I go to sleep around 2, 3 or 4 p.m. So it kicks in for then. So that's the sort of schedule I take Tramadol on. So I briefly want to talk about the things I tried before Tramadol, before I get into the pros and cons, because these will kind of make more sense when you hear the cons of Tramadol as to why I didn't keep on with these. So the things I tried, the first medication I ever tried was codeine. I first started taking that when I got out of a surgery, which I think is a lot of people's story with opioid medication in general. So that really helped with the pain then. But after my surgery, I still had a lot of pain in walking. The surgery I had, by the way, was just a tarsectomy on my foot, I think they call it, and a tendon lengthening, which is a common surgery for my disability. But after the fact, once I got walking again a little bit more because my foot was easier to walk on at the time, I kept taking codeine for about 3 months. I didn't take a high dose. I can't remember the exact amount now. But, I took enough that I could go out and function, and it helped with the pain, but wasn't too overwhelming. But I found after about a month, the nausea from it, like I'd take it and then 2 hours later, I'd feel so sick, like I was going to throw up, occasionally did throw up. Dizziness, lightheadedness was not the good kind of lightheadedness that makes you feel kind of up in the clouds. It was the kind that makes you feel like spaced and just horrible. So that didn't work for me, codeine, and I stopped taking it after 3 months. After that, I then tried Acupan, which I believe is a brand name. I think the actual name of the medicine is Nefapam. That was kind of the same story. At first, it helped. It kind of, it gave me the lightheadedness at first and it was okay. It gave me a little bit of nausea, but it was okay. But again, after about a month of taking that every day, my stomach was like in pieces, like painful, diarrhea, making me feel really ill. Too much information, but I'm trying to be real with you guys here so you know the pros and cons of this. So again, after about 2 months, I think that was, maybe, I stopped taking that because it just wasn't any good. So then I moved house. I started living with my girlfriend who helped care for me a lot more, which kind of made me want to try something new because I just decided not to take any medication. I take paracetamol occasionally, which is like Tylenol in the US, I believe, just to take the edge off. It didn't really help. I wasn't doing a lot then. I was in a pretty deep depression. I was in bed most days anyway, so I didn't take any pain medication for about 6 months. But then after that, I decided, I wanted to start getting out and about again. And I went to the doctors and they suggested Tramadol. They didn't really prescribe Acupan anymore, which I was willing to give another try, but they didn't prescribe it. And to be honest, I'm glad they didn't because it didn't really work for me. So they gave me Tramadol. I believe back then I would take it twice a day and I would take 100 milligrams in the morning and 100 milligrams before bed. Because I was taking quite a big dose in the morning, it kind of lasted me throughout the day. I didn't have any tolerance to it because I'd never taken it before and I'd been off any real kind of medication for 6 months. So I started taking it, and at first I was blown away with how much it helped. Like, it didn't take me down to a 0 out of 10 at all. I was maybe 2 or 3, which any chronic pain patient will tell you is amazing when you've been at a 5 or 6 or 7 and 8 every day with your back or with any kind of pain. So that blew my mind for a month. The nausea was kind of bad when I first started taking it, but it really helped. I was able to go out, I was able to function, which is, obviously taking away pain if you just want to survive and just stay in bed is fantastic. And to be honest, that's the stage I'm at now. But back then, I wanted to go out and do things, and I could because my disability hadn't progressed to the place it has now. But at the time, I could go out and do stuff. I still had to be careful. I still had chronic fatigue. I still had a lot of pain. I still couldn't walk particularly well. But I was able to go around the shops with my girlfriend and be out for an hour or so, and have a nice time. That was 3 years ago. I've been taking it every single day for 3 years and 2 months now, I think it's been. I think I started it in November, and this is January. And it helped. It really helped, like I say. It let me do things I didn't think I could do. It really helped me with gigs, which I was doing way more often then than I do now. I'm lucky if I do one a month now. Back then I was doing 2 a week maybe, you know, certainly 5-ish a month, really getting out there and gigging and having a great time. So that's the pros of Tramadol for me. Helped me with my particular schedule and lifestyle. The nausea wasn't too bad for me personally. Again, your mileage will vary. I'm not going to say may vary. Everyone is different. So it was great. It really helped me. But the reason you're watching this video, I would imagine, is because you've read the side effects of Tramadol and you're scared about them. I certainly was. The first time I took it, I was terrified. I had anxiety as it was. And of course, one of the side effects of most medications is increased anxiety. So that scared me in itself, let alone, you know, the long, long list of other side effects. So one thing I will say straight away is that on the form, it says 1 in 100 side effects, nausea, anxiety, diarrhea, sore stomach, whatever. And then it has 1 in 1,000 side effects. So 1 in 1,000 people suffer from these particular side effects. Again, I don't believe those numbers. I suffer, I would say, from like at least 50% of those side effects on that 1 in 1,000 column. Most people I've spoken to suffer from at least one of them, if not numerous. So I don't believe those numbers. I think you need to bear those in mind. I think you need to read the pamphlet. Be prepared when you first take it. Don't have plans. Make sure you can stay in. Make sure you have a friend or family member around just to keep an eye on you and make sure you don't have any kind of adverse reaction. I'm not trying to scare you, you know, I know that sounds like terrifying, like you just need to be careful, make sure you're in a controlled environment, probably just a day where you're going to spend it in bed anyway, make sure you're not, because it makes you dizzy, it makes you nauseous, it will the first time. Regardless of whether or not that will be a long-term effect, it will make you dizzy, it will make you nauseous. It's an opioid medication. Your body isn't going to be used to it, you're going to have no tolerance, it's probably going to put you up in the clouds, so just bear that in mind. But I want to talk about my experience with the specific and the major side effects that I experience. So one I experience a lot is nausea now. I didn't at first. I mean, I did like the first few days, but then it kind of like my body got used to it. It kind of stopped being as bad. My stomach got used to it and I was fine and I could function. But now the nausea is terrible. 2 hours after taking it, I feel sick. Even right now I'm making this video, I'm about an hour and a half after taking today's dose, and I'm like having to stop talking every now and again just because I feel like I'm going to gag or I'm going to throw up. So, you know, that is obviously not ideal. It's hard to function when that is the case. So quick background before I talk about the next con. I used to take 100 milligrams 3 times a day. So that was 2 for me anyway with my prescription. That was 2 Tramadol capsules 3 times a day for 3 years up until a few months ago. My body obviously built up a huge tolerance to that, to the point where with Tramadol, before I started taking it, my regular lifestyle would be around here, say. We'll say that's the midpoint. And when I took Tramadol, it would take me up to here. My pain wasn't so bad. I could go out, I was happy, I was motivated, it was fantastic. After taking it for 3 years, my body obviously built up a huge tolerance. 3 years of taking any medication is obviously not fantastic for your body, and it's going to build up a tolerance. So instead of my midpoint being here, I would start my day down here. Like right at the bottom. I'd wake up feeling like I'd feel terrible, I'd feel exhausted, and that's from the chronic fatigue anyway, but on top of that, I'd feel terrible, I'd feel sick, I'd feel nauseated, and I just had to force food down me, take my medication, do nothing for like 2 hours, and then it would take me up to maybe just below my midpoint where I used to start. Frame may have changed, just had to get up and grab a mint because I was feeling sick as I was talking about it. Mints really help with my nausea, so excuse that. So as I was saying, my midpoint used to be here. Then when I took Tramadol for 3 years, I'd wake up down here and then maybe come up to here. So around 6 months ago, I decided to wean myself down off of the high dose I was on. It took me 6 months, so I dropped out 1 tablet from each 3 doses over 6 months. So that brings me on to the con. After probably about 2 weeks or 3 weeks, if you miss a dose of your Tramadol, you will feel terrible. It's not the withdrawal you see in the movies at first anyway. You'll probably just get a headache at first. You'll probably just feel really unmotivated and lethargic and exhausted. I can tell you after 3 years though of taking it, if I missed the dose, which was 100 milligrams at the time, so 2 capsules, I'd get a migraine almost straight away. I would feel incredibly sick and quite often throw up. I would have cold sweats, definitely. I wouldn't be shaking as such. And that was my experience. Migraine, cold sweats, had to lie down in a perfectly dark, like completely dark room, couldn't watch TV, couldn't focus on anything, just literally had to lie there and try and wait for it to pass. Very hard to sleep, usually just lying there, wide awake for 2 hours, just waiting for it to pass, and then waiting for to take the dose I forgot about to kick in. While it wouldn't usually take 2 hours in that case, because your body is like crying out for it, it still takes a while, you know, you're still lying there for a good hour, feeling atrocious with a migraine, feeling sick, cold sweats, absolutely horrible. So one thing I will say is if you take Tramadol, get yourself a pill box. Sorry about lighting, I don't know if you can see that. You want to make sure you, don't take too much. It is quite easy to overdose on Tramadol. There were a lot of stories about that. So bear that in mind. You really, really need to keep track. If you've got a bad memory and you live on your own, I wouldn't recommend it. If you've got a friend or family member that can help, if you've got a box like this, I know in America you have the tubed, I can't think of the word right now, you know, I mean the little orange cylinder capsule thing. I know you can get lids for those which have a timer on. I don't know the price of them. I know they probably aren't affordable to folks on disability, but if you live on your own, you've got a bad memory, I would honestly suggest grabbing one of those. You don't want to take too much for a start, and also you don't want to forget. And the problem with that is that it sounds silly, but once you've taken Tramadol every single day for 3 years, taking the act of like popping one out of the packet and putting it in your mouth and taking it becomes so second nature to you that you can have them sat in front of you, and say if you're watching TV while you're eating and doing it, you'll think, did I just take that? I can't remember. And the problem is, you can't say, well, I might have, but I'll just take them again in case, because you could easily overdose or certainly make yourself very, very sick and very ill. You can't just take 2 doses, you know? So most of the time when I forgot, I would take my breakfast one and then it would come to my main meal one and I'd be like, crap, I don't know if I took that. They're sitting here in front of me. I don't know how many was in the pack. I don't know if I took them. And I couldn't risk taking it again because it would make me very sick. It could end up in me overdosing, especially at that high dose, and especially at first when my body wasn't quite used to it. So that is something you need to be careful of. So the next huge con is probably the thing that hits me the most after the nausea and stuff, and something I didn't know there was really a word for, and that symptom, that side effect is called mania or hypomania. In the sheet that comes with my medication, it says it's euphoria, a feeling of euphoria. But the medical term for my research is mania or hypomania, most likely hypomania, as it's not as bad. So what that means is, for me, about 2 hours after I take my tablets, I am just hyper. I am incredibly motivated. I can't stop talking. I have a million ideas in my head, videos I want to make, songs I want to cover, recordings I want to do, writing I want to do, disability advocacy posts I want to make. Like, my brain is just going at 1,000 miles an hour. I'll give you a quick list and I'll pop up the screenshot from the NHS site here. So it says you'll have high energy, restlessness, really struggle to get to sleep, very high self-esteem, confidence, and grandiosity, and that is a big one. You'll be really talkative. My girlfriend will attest to that. Like, when I take it, if I'm playing a game, I commentate on every single thing I'm doing. I'm just constantly going and going and going and going, and my brain just feels like it's gonna explode. It's going 100 miles an hour. You'll have a racing mind. You'll have loads of plans. You'll have loads of ideas you want to do, probably that you won't be able to do. You'll be easily distracted. Definitely something. I really struggle to focus even just on a TV show. I watch everything with subtitles because I feel like there's some sensory processing I struggle with there, especially when I'm in like hypomania or whatever. So that's a huge thing. You'll take on too many projects, as I have mentioned, and you'll have an increased sexual desire, and that is one too. Again, TMI, but worth noting, that is all of those. Every single one of these points for me is accurate with Tramadol. So that's a huge thing to bear in mind, because while that feels great sometimes, and it can help, it will wear off. You've got like a 20-minute window, a 30-minute window where it'll kick in. You'll feel motivated. But like any medication for pain in general, that will wear off and you will feel completely afterwards. You won't feel motivated anymore. All the ideas you had in your head, you will realize were unrealistic, that you won't be able to do them. Even if they were relatively simple, you certainly won't have the energy or the motivation to do them after. So for me, those are the main ones: anxiety, nausea, hypomania, mania, whichever one you may end up with when you take it. If you get either, again, these are my experiences. I don't think everyone experienced that, but certainly for me, they're the 3 main ones. There are dozens. If you have any questions about other ones I may have experienced, I can't fit them all in this video, drop me a comment, DM me, whatever you want. I'll be happy to talk you through them. So lastly, I want to talk about my experience in weaning off of Tramadol. 6 months ago, as I said, I decided that I was taking too much. Instead of being here all the time, I was starting the day here and coming up to here, which was obviously defeating the entire object of taking pain medication. My body had grown up such a tolerance to it. It wasn't helping with the pain. It wasn't helping me get out and about and do things. It was leaving me depressed. It was leaving me exhausted. So I went to the doctors. I said, look, this isn't working for me anymore. I want to certainly cut my dose and maybe hopefully get entirely off of it. So as I said, so I dropped 1 tablet of a dose out of each dose I would take. So instead of taking 100 milligrams 3 times a day, I would take 50 milligrams 3 times a day. I did that over a course of 6 months. I dropped one tablet out pretty much a month. Obviously not exactly a month, but I found that was the best way to do it. That was the lowest dose, 50 milligrams per capsule, I could get at my doctor's. So it was the slowest I could possibly do it. I wasn't in a mad rush because I know that missing a dose made me feel terrible. The withdrawal was almost unbearable. So I did it slowly. It was a long 6 months of not really being able to gig, of not really being able to go out and do a lot of stuff. It was just a long 6 months of Netflix and video games, and that sounds amazing, but not when you feel absolutely and can't leave the house for around 6 months to do anything. So if you do take them, please bear in mind that when you try to come off them, it will probably be difficult. I have got a friend who says that she managed to just stop taking her entire dose, which was around what I was taking, with no real issues. A couple of days of feeling a bit off, but then she was fine. But the majority of people I've spoken to really struggle to get off them, because they are addictive. They are, your body builds up a tolerance and it wants more to feel the actual effects of it instead of just tolerating it and coming up to that point where you feel like you did before you even started taking them but get no real benefit. So what's my plan going forward? Because I don't want to, I've taken Tramadol for a long time. My tolerance is too built up. I would like to get completely off of it, at least for a little while, so that my tolerance will go down and then I can start again maybe. My plan though is to try and get some muscle relaxers so that I can come off the Tramadol, and in that in-between period before I try different medication, I can at least sleep and it'll try and numb my restless legs. So I'm going to try and either take baclofen or I'm going to try and take diazepam. If my doctor will prescribe either, again, very difficult. And I know it's just as hard in the US, and obviously you have to pay as ridiculous prices too. So I don't know if that'll be possible. One thing that used to help me a lot when I was younger is I used to smoke cannabis or marijuana or weed or pot or whatever you want to call it. That was the best pain medication I ever had. But A, it wasn't legal. B, it was expensive. And C, the anxiety that came along with that for the strains that I could get a hold of were eventually too much for me. So it was like a month of really good pain medication, but then the anxiety got to be too much. It is available now on the NHS, but chances of getting it are slimmer than getting opioids, really. The only categories they really give it to is people with epilepsy, obviously because it can stop the fits, I believe. Don't quote me on that. People getting over the effects of chemotherapy, it can help with that. And people with multiple sclerosis. Now, my disability is kind of similar to multiple sclerosis in some ways, so maybe I can make a case there. Chances are slim though. While I was trying to come off of my Tramadol, I was using CBD oil supplemented. Read up on that before you do it, because because of the way your liver processes Tramadol, and because of the way it would process the CBD, it can make your liver not process Tramadol as it should, and it can make you overdose. But when I came completely off it, I tried that CBD oil for a week, and through the day, I did taking way more than it suggested. You can't really overdose on CBD oil. Please, again, read up on that before you take more than you should. Talk to people, read up on it, talk to your doctor. But I was taking 3 times the recommended dose on the CBD oil that I bought in a store. And it helped. It helped with the pain, it helped me relax a little, it helped my muscles relax. There is no THC, which is the part of cannabis which is the psychoactive part that makes you like high and makes you, you can hallucinate whatever kind of cannabis you're taking. But the CBD oil is just the cannabidiol, which is what stops you feeling as much pain, to give you a simple explanation. So that's my plan. Anyway, this has probably been a long video. I apologize for that, but I really wanted to try and cover all of the bases. Obviously, it's all important to know the pros and the cons, because the pros can be very high and the cons can be very low. Chances are you'll come out for both somewhere in the middle eventually after taking it for a little while. So do more research. Don't just watch my video. Watch other people's videos. Talk to your doctor. Talk to people online in chronic pain forums. Come over to my Instagram account. I'll put it here and it's in the description, _Sam Bosworth. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have and you want to see more disability videos, be sure to subscribe down below if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, share it, like it, retweet it, whatever you want to do with your friends who may be interested in taking Tramadol, who do already take Tramadol, who have chronic pain in general. I would appreciate it. I post lots of disability videos here. I'm really going to get back to it this year. And I also post music videos if you're into that kind of thing too. I love you guys. Thanks. Bye.